It's not that easy, this one. Okay. Hey everyone, yeah, welcome to this presentation about NEM blockchain. So just out of curiosity, how many here are invested in NEM or ZEM in some other way? Okay, yeah, so around 1/3 maybe. Yeah, I am invested in NEM, but I'm not here to convince you that NEM is the best blockchain or that you should invest in it. I have distilled the best information I could get on NEM, and I will try and give you my opinions about it, and so you can form your opinions. Yeah, today I work as a freelance programmer for the NEM Foundation. I'm not a crypto expert, but I learned some along the way, so I probably can answer some of the questions. So, and with that, like, feel free to ask during the presentation, and I will try and answer the best way I can. I also have a backup slide with the most difficult question you can ask. So, yeah. With that said, I'm going to try and explain to you what the fuck is NEM. And with that, we're going to go into the consensus mechanism. So what is proof of importance? Like we all know proof of work from Bitcoin and that Ethereum is going towards proof of stake. So what is proof of importance? Then we're going to go into multi-signature. What is this on NEM? As we know, in Ethereum, multi-signature is smart contracts, but in NEM it's something else. What is it? Off-chain, like many people coming into the NEM community are wondering about how do you do smart contracts on NEM, and I will try and like explain it. It's not that cool as it sounds, but I'll try and explain it. And then we go into the assets part. It's called mosaics, and that's where NEM really markets themselves as the smart asset blockchain. So why is that? We're going to go take a look at what assets it's. So, and just NIS is like a GEF, it's the application that is running on blockchain. Take a look at that also. So NEM markets itself as the blockchain for businesses. Why is that? I will try to give you some clarity to why is that. And during the presentation, like I tried to distill all this information and try to show you how the functionality of NEM works. I will try my best. And to do that, we will create an ICO as an example. So a very simple ICO for an electrical grid company. Or not a company, it can be anything. So yeah, and we'll quit with airdrop. So the agenda for today, just why am I here talking about NEM to you? Then some background information about NEM. And then we go into all the topics I just talked about. What the fuck is NEM, and how do NEM, in our community, we are anticipating this big update called Catapult. What is that, and what do NEM envision for use in our society? So I'll try and give some ideas about that. Yeah, with that, I'll get going. Any questions? Like, feel free to ask questions during the presentation. I will try and answer them. So, I got into blockchain when Norway had its first exchange. It was called JustCoin. I thought this was a really cool thing, and I remember I really looked up to the guys running it on Mesh. So that was in 2013, 2014, and that's how I got in. But so 1 year ago, I wanted to create something blockchain centric. So I'm a programmer, as I said. And I started looking into NEM. And I recently have been working on a WooCommerce project. WooCommerce is an open source e-commerce solution. And I like said, oh, I can make something. So I created a payment gateway that makes all these web shops running on WooCommerce accept SEM in their web shop. And it's free, and everyone can download it, and yeah, so it's on the WordPress repo. So, and this is how I got involved in the NEM Foundation. They saw this and invited me, and that's how I started working as a freelance programmer for them. So, one of the things that NEM was pretty simple to start with, because I could write the logic that is interacting with the blockchain in any language I prefer. So that was pretty simple to start with. And the next project I did was, I call it an inventory. It's a simple proof of concept that shows how businesses can transfer assets between warehouses, vendors, customers. So in a supply chain, how do you transfer assets? So it's basically item master backed on the blockchain, and you can exchange it with each other, and it's all the quantities are backed on the blockchain as assets with properties. So I created an inventory. It's released. It's on. If you go into inventory.nem.today, you can see it. It's a simple proof of concept of a trade system. I also created, while doing this, I also created a PHP library, and so to make it easier to work with these nodes on the blockchain. And the last project I did was a little bit inspired from inventory. I was wondering how all these products were transacted on the blockchain, and also how ICOs, how do all these ICOs that are issued as tokens or coins, how are these transacted? So I created a little crawler that crawls from the point of creation of the assets. It crawls all the transactions and creates network graphs. So I created this, and it creates graphs, but it's really not that interesting because the ICOs and the products aren't really transacted that much. So yeah, there's not that interesting graphs. But yeah, I was in, this is picture here. I was in Berlin meeting up with the NEM Foundation and some developers. So this is the vice president of NEM, his name is Jeff, and this is Greg, who is a programmer. He created a game backed on the blockchain. So it's kind of, you can log in and play a game, and if you have a high score, you get a token that no one else gets, and so on. So pretty cool what he created, but yeah, it's just a proof of concept also. So enough about me. When the fuck did NEM start? And yeah, some background information. As you probably all know, the Bitcoin asset revolution started in 2009. Then Charlie Lee came and created Litecoin in 2011. And from my knowledge, these colored coins, or second layer coins, started coming in 2013 with counterparty open assets Omni. But what may be a little less familiar is the next blockchain was also released that year, and instead of having assets as a second layer token, you now had assets built into the blockchain. So this next blockchain spawned the idea for a new economy movement, which is NEM. There was a guy called Utopian Future with an utopian idea about this new economy movement. He created a thread on Bitcoin Talk, and he gathered around 5 or 6 developers to create this community-driven new blockchain project. He managed to get these going, and in mid to end 2014, NEM public blockchain was released in private beta, and it went public open in the beginning of 2015. So right after the release of the public blockchain, they also released Mijin, which is a private blockchain. And now we're getting into what NEM is envisioning. It's the use of public and private blockchains working together. But it's kind of like they didn't create it perfect the first time, so they started really fast creating the next version, which is Catapult. So if you go into, here's a little link to a movie showing the development of Catapult, and you will see that they started creating it pretty early after Mijin was released. Yeah, Mijin is a private blockchain. It's run by Tech Bureau. So I think it's around 300 companies that are running this private blockchain today, and amongst them are Hitachi, and so it claims that there are also nuclear power plants that are running it, but I can't verify that. NEM is written in Java. It's going to be written in C++ to increase performance, and it's not open source yet. And that's can be a deal breaker for someone. But they have stated that they will, when Catapult is released to the public in 2018, everything will go open source, and they will, as they are saying. So, a little bit background information about NEM. So you had the public release, and in 2015, with the private the same year, and for 3 years they have, or two to 3 years, they have worked on this Catapult release. Any questions? So the question was when did I mean by Catapult release in 2018? And to be more precise, the tech bureau has issued a statement right now for some weeks ago that Catapult is released in private beta in the end of November now, but the public part, so they will release the public part in the beginning of 2018 is what they claim. And then they will release it in public later in 2018. I said I heard some guess from people inside the community that around March, what they are thinking. But I don't know. I can't claim. I can't state it. It's NEM Foundation. So exactly, the NEM Foundation are funded with them, so they are pretty good founded now. I think if you look at the rich list, I don't have it here, but if you look at the rich list, you will see that the NEM Foundation has pretty high funds for driving the development forward. There are also a dev fund that is driving the development. But an interesting thing is that they were developers at that time, or 5 or 6. Now it's 3, but they have been those 3 since they started Catapult. That's probably also why they went over to C++. No, it's or private. The private part is now kind of license based, but it's going to be open source. Okay, so enough background information. Now it's time to go into what the fuck NEM is, and just like this is a lot of information, so here's the agenda. I will quickly cover some basics, then I'll start going into the consensus mechanism, which is 3 slides. I will go through multi-signature, off-chain smart contracts, and mosaics and NIS. So yeah, some slides. Yeah, basics. When I'm talking about NEM, it's the NEM blockchain platform. And when I'm talking about SEM, it's the main currency on NEM. So there's a difference there. And the main currency SEM is fixed at 9 billion on the blockchain, or in NEM platform. Remind. So no one else, nothing will be released. And it's an important part for the consensus mechanism. Huh? The cost of execution. Right now, they actually had a hard fork to decrease the fees because NEM had gone such up in price. So the transaction, I think it's very low. I don't remember figures now, but it's very low. You can see it after now. You see it. Okay, so let's get into what is proof of importance. As I said, you know proof of work from Bitcoin and proof of stake from Peercoin, and what that is as per release of Ethereum, you will go over to proof of stake. What NEM has introduced is this reputation-based consensus mechanism. It takes proof of stake and reputation, and that is the proof of importance. So how does this work? Let's dive into how they are creating blocks. And creating a block on NEM blockchain is done. It's called harvesting, but you can, if you're coming from Bitcoin, it's like mining, and the more it can be called a lottery, because it's like, if the more importance you have, the more tickets you have to the lottery and to win the block and get all the transaction fees, and then get the block. So to create a block, you use information from the previous block. That's the hash and so on. So it's kind of random numbers. You use the second since last block, and here's a graph of 360 blocks. It just shows that you will be around, or NEM will always be around 60 seconds in blocks, and it will adjust the difficulty after an aggregated average of the 60 last blocks. So that's how difficulty is created. But it's not the kind of difficulty that is computational heavy. It's more of, as we will see later, it's more of a difficulty to generate score and saying who gets the block. So you have info from previous block, you have second since last blocks, and you have difficulty. Those are all like static for each account, but then you have the account-specific variable, which is the importance. So let's see what importance really is. Yeah. Importance. Each harvesting allowable account has an importance calculated. So there's difference between every account and every harvest allowable account. But it's basically, it takes your stake and it takes your net transfers. And your stake is like how much SEM you have. And then your net transfer is how much you have transacted with the economy. So the more you stake, the higher the importance you have. But the more you spend also increases your importance, but draws down the stake. So this is kind of a balancing factor, but that's very simplified statement. So the balance, you have the balance, and this is not like if I would receive like 1 billion ZEM tomorrow, it's not like I would have that stake right away. It needs time to vest, and that's what we mean by vested balance. And it vests around 10% each day. So it's actually the vested balance that is important in this calculation. But okay, that's proof of stake, so that's okay. The net transfers, they are determining your importance based on net transfer which says something about who you transacted with and if those people that you transacted with are important. So how do you actually determine that they are important? Then you have this clustering of so you can weigh how important a node is, and it's a difficult algorithm. It's using a scan clustering algorithm, and they have tried to they're using this implementation, and they have increased the performance of it, and it basically takes each harvest allowable account, and here's the important part with the static SEM. It's with the static SEM of 9 billion, you will have a max of 900,000 harvest allowable accounts, because you have to have 10,000 SEM to actually be able to harvest. But then you have to have perfect distribution, and of course you don't have that now, so it's around 10,000 accounts that you actually have to run this calculation on. So only 2 neighbors for each account are calculated in this weighting. And that's how it will create these, from that calculation it will create these nodes and hubs and clusters and say something about importance. So you have this importance thing, and that's basically a reputation. And then you can use, you don't only need to use it for consensus, you can also use it for example, preventing spam. In Bitcoin we have the mempool, like the same in NEM, and here we use the importance to say who can get into the mempool if it's clogged, but only if it's clogged. And here there is, like for example, they will always set a fixed limit of how many transactions can go into each block. So right now that is at 120. 120 transactions can go into each block, so that means 2 transactions each second. That's just an artificial limit. They can increase that. So yeah, they use this reputation also to prevent spam. But I like, this is a challenge, but also a thing. You have voting, or we created this third-party application that did voting on the NEM blockchain. But right now, NEM is mostly used to transact, and the exchanges are practically the economy makers in NEM. So they are so important. And if you created this voting system that lets you have vote based on your importance, the exchanges are too important. So we actually had to like fix them out of the voting. So a challenge with this system, but yeah, it can also be used in some ways. So still not done with consensus. The chain synchronization. So yeah, we are generating these blocks, and it's generating based on some information and your importance. But that gives a simplified version of it. It gives a block score, and it will be higher with less time you used. It's not like you will do computational heavy things. You can't like increase the computation to have it solved faster. It's kind of a random thing, but you increase your luck with importance. So, and it will the chain will always choose the block with the highest score, and there are then it will sync with other nodes based on this eigentrust plus mechanism, and from that it will get like all the blocks of this other node or this remote node and sync that with itself. So if it's valid, it will sync it. If it's not valid, it will fork it or fork out. That's basic. I don't want to go too much down in synchronization because it's kind of complicated. But if you have more questions about it, I also have this slide that are for hard questions. But you can also check the TechRef if you want to really dig down to the algorithms there. So questions? Yeah. I actually had to. I asked in the tech channel today, how do they propagate? Like when this node has reached, it's kind of a, you have these hits that it's each second kind of thing. It calculates a hit, and if the target, which is a kind of a random thing, if it goes over that, you have created a block, kind of. So then it does this chain synchronization to the other blocks, and based on the block score, it says that, oh, you have the highest block, and yeah. But you can also put a score on the chain. So when you have to. I can't really answer it now, but yeah, I had some questions about this, and they supplied me with the answers on the tech channel because I was a little afraid of that question, but I can't really get the feeling of it and explain it simply to you. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. So harvesting. You have this harvesting that is the creation of blocks. But you also have this delegated harvesting, which is you kind of sign your private key and you supply that to a node, and it can harvest on your behalf. So you're kind of sending your importance to another account, and it will use that importance to run harvesting. So what is the incentive for a node to run harvesting on behalf of others? And at the moment, there is no incentive to run that node except for the supernode program. So it's a funded program to run these supernodes, which have harvesting slots for people. And that's like, that won't work in the future. So I have asked like how they are planning to solve this, and they will solve it, they are claiming, but they don't know. They don't know as of now. They have come with some ideas, and that like maybe harvesting accounts will pay the owner to be harvesting, or there are some sharing between the node owner and the harvester. So, but it's pretty. This like if when you're giving away your importance just to have someone else harvest or create blocks based on your importance, it's kind of offline mining. And that was why I said remote mining. It's offline. They are just using your reputation in the blockchain to create blocks. And all this, I would think that it's pretty computational heavy, but it's not. It can run on a Pi and an Odroid and those small devices. Supernode, pretty high. You have to have 3 million ZEM, and that's around 5 million kroners now. There are also there are these checks that you have to apply by each day. So you have, and the node, I think it's a $50 a month server that will run it. If you're using DigitalOcean. Yeah, so as I said, it's no rewards for regular nodes. So if you do it, it's a very altruistic thing to do. The rewards for supernodes, I think it's around 150 SEM each day. Don't take me on that. I think it's around there. But from this supernode fund. So this was planned from the start that they will I think it's for first 9 years, they will fund a supernode program. Yeah. Yeah. That is proof of importance. Any questions about proof of importance? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, and everyone says everyone claims that, and I read to the tech ref to like understand all these. They are covering every of these attacks, like Sybil attacks, loop attacks, and all those. And I can show you it after. That's the hard question slide. So there we will show every attack and how they are managing it. Yeah, so the question is like if you're like left behind, kind of. Yeah. 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 I think it's so. I think it's very that there are some gains to have a lot of transactions in your history, but it should be very small, and it's only the 30 last days of transactions that are really important to that calculation. But I think it's like that, but I can't quite say for sure. So to run the nodes or harvesting and mining, like so you want to harvest because if you're getting the block, you're getting all the fees in that block. So yeah. Yeah, I'll start with the mosaics or assets. I'll probably just call it assets during the presentation because it's easier to know. But in NEM they call it mosaics. So and to show off this, I created let's create this very simple ICO for the electricity market called Power. And to create this ICO or this asset, we need to understand two concepts of how these assets work. And that is, first thing is namespaces, because you put assets on namespaces, and namespaces is just like the domain name system. So an easy analogy is, with the power of it, is you buy, if you want to buy a Rolex and you buy it from cheaprolexes.com, is it real or is it fake? But if you buy it from rolex.com, is it real or is it fake? So that's the same thing. It's namespaces, but with sub-namespaces. So you can have different. You can have like the main level. Then you have a hierarchy down of sub-namespaces. And so that means we can create the power namespace, and no one else can create this namespace. And then we can create the power.station sub-namespace for this ICO. And yeah, let's talk very quickly about this ICO that we are creating. It's distributed. You distribute some hardware, and these hardware, small hardware devices, transact with each other with the power.coin. But to have this hardware, a little hardware device, you also have to have a license, and these licenses are handled under the namespace power station, and with the assets. So yeah, we have like three kind of name assets. We have non-transferable assets. These are, for example, if I'm a government and I want to issue a citizenship, I can issue a citizenship to you, and you can't transfer it with anyone. You can only transfer it back to me. So someone also created these shame assets that you can't transfer to anyone. Then you I can send a shame assets to you, and you can't transfer to anyone. But that's non-transferable assets. Transferable assets is just like any coin, pretty simple. But what you can also do is put levy on all these assets. So, for example, if you had this house and you were selling it, and each time you sell the house, you take 2%. That's a levy, and that 2% should go to one account, and that's the government, for example. So let's create this coin. Power coin. I have to do this example, I just created an account on the Nano wallet. It has some SEM, and I took the liberty to create the namespace power and the sub-namespace power station. So now let's just create the power coin. So by the way, this is not how I make applications on them. It's just the Nano wallet that we are using. That is the official wallet for them. So create mosaic. Let's call it coin. And I'm just going to copy a description from here. How much supply should we have in this coin? John? 1,000. More? How much? 1 million, okay. That's 6 zeros, isn't it? Okay, 1 million, no divisibility. So if we could put up to 6 here, and you will say that you can have like lots more than 1 million, but let's just put it to 0. And yeah, I'll input my super secret password, 123. And yeah, here you said, should it be transferable? Yes, it should, because it's traded. Should it be mutable? Should we be able to increase it in the future? No. It will always stay like this. So now we have announced a transaction, and it will start arriving in the mempool of other nodes. I'm just connected to a random node now. I think I can see it here. Yeah, this is the node I'm connected to now. So in less than 60 seconds from I created it, it will be included, because I know I have enough SEM, and yeah, it's valid. So back to the presentation. When we go back, it should be created. Enough about assets then. Multi-signature. As you probably know, in Ethereum, multi-signature is a smart contract. In NEM, it's built-in functionality. So it's the same with assets. In Ethereum, that is a smart contract with the ERC20 standard. In NEM, it's built-in. So that's one difference. So we have created these PowerCoin assets, and Alice and Bob and Chuck have created this company, and they all put funds into this account and created this PowerCoin. But who are gonna own it? And then we use multi-signature, and multi-signature. They can like Bob, Alice, and Chuck can agree that only 2 of them need to sign to actually have a transaction go through. That was the transaction that went through. So we can set up this on the business account. So let's just quickly make this multi-sig business account. So I have the super secret private key here. And then I will just add Alice. Then we will add Bob. And last thing, Chuck. So, and as you see, I see that I have the minimum signatures below there, and that's how many we agree that has to sign before it should, if it should go through. So you can have up to 32 of these accounts, and you can have like 1 of 32 that has to sign, and so on. So let's just make this a multi-sig, and it will, as soon as that create multi-sig account transaction goes through, it will be a multi-sig account. So let's go back to the presentation. That's basically a multi-signature on NEM. What time is it, by the way? Yeah. As I said, off-chain smart contracts, a lot of people coming into NEM are wondering, how do you do smart contracts? And it's really, really simple. It's basically just that you are monitoring an account, and because it's off-chain, you are like creating your application in whatever language. You can create it in PHP, you can create it in Go, and this application monitors this account, listens for a transaction or a message or anything, and do some action and proposes a new transaction back to the blockchain based on it. So let's say we have actually created this ICO and are launching. We have set up a nice looking web page, flashy banners, and of course we have created a white paper. So we post our address on this site, and we are ready to receive investments. So we could just do it like with the non-wallet and send it out each transaction. But let's just create an application that monitors our account and sends, based for every one SEM we get, we send 2 PowerCoin back, for example. So that's basically, when they're talking about off-chain smart contracts, that's what they're talking about. By the way, any questions? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, it goes to a sync address and then yeah. So yeah, that's with before it was really expensive to create namespaces because we hadn't had the fee fork. So now it's, I think it's 100 SEM to create a namespace or to rent it for 1 year, and you have to rent it each year. So, and there's 10 SEM for sub namespaces. Yeah, sync address. So hopefully no one has a private key for it. Sorry, can you? Yeah. The advantage is, for example, if for example, Bob, Alice, and Chuck are creating this business account, and they don't want one person to like have a control of all the funds. then Alice can like propose a transaction that we should pay this guy 50,000 SEM, and it won't go through unless either Bob or Chuck signs it. So it's kind of delegated ownership, but you can also do it in other ways. For example, when I created this inventory application, that's a SaaS application, so it's running on a server, and I didn't want to. If someone had compromised my server, they would get all the funds on that account and be in control of the namespace, and I didn't want that. So what I did is I created a multi-sig account. I put one private key on the public application, or the public web application, and I had a bot running on another server that had the other private key. So when someone did something on the web application, they could only propose transactions on the blockchain, and this bot had its own logic to either deny or accept transactions. So if someone got the private key of this web application, which is kind of insecure, but not that insecure also, but if they got that private key, they couldn't withdraw my SEM unless I had very bad logic on this bot that was signing these transactions. So yeah, that's one other power of it. Okay, so the NEM infrastructure server, that's the application that are actually running the blockchain. So it's downloadable for Linux, Windows, Mac. Yeah, you can like in our example, if we were going to create this contract, we could either we can just create it in JavaScript, for example, and each day I went into this web page that can run in JavaScript, and it creates that, signs it, and ships it off to a remote node, just like what I'm doing in the Nano wallet when I created this asset. And that's this here, this example here. It's a kind of a thin client that does all the signing. It has some crypto functions, and it can sign the transaction with a private key offline in some way, and then ship it over the internet. But the other solution is we could just have everything on the same server, and we don't need to sign anything. We can just either communicate with this blockchain node in either binary or JSON, and that's also one of the power. NEM says that one of the powerful thing is that you can interact with it like any API, so you can just transfer JSON data back and forward. And you can also use binary if you want to increase performance. So for this crawler, that was like questioning each transaction for every asset on the blockchain. You have to have performance. Then it's much more performant to talk with the node in the binary, for example. So yeah, any questions about the application running the blockchain? No. Yeah. Yeah. So now we were only talking and working with the public network, and so we could. Right now we created a multi-sig account. So then I would have to go into the other accounts to propose the transaction. But yeah, we could transfer the PowerCoin to anyone. So yeah. So you have to pay in a SEM fee to actually transfer that. But yeah, that's kind of a problem today. It's like I could create a Robin coin or PowerCoin, and I can send it to you, and then you would have PowerCoin. But if you didn't have any SEM, you couldn't send it to anyone. So what we need is some way to have fees to make transactions, but not that it's tied to SEM. And that's one in Catapult, the next release that are coming in 2018. This is there are proposed solutions to have transactions in transactions and multiple transactions in one transaction. And then you can do like a three-way swap. So I'll get to that. I'm going to very short go through some of the public projects. This is, I just got it from the community. It's very new. You have Loyal Coin. This is just a reward program. It's going to ICO now. I'm not going to talk very much about this. Pundix, everyone is very excited about this. They are delivering ATMs and push solutions to buy with cryptocurrency in store and so, like the usual retailer ICO. But they have got traction and they have 300 merchants, and I heard that one of them was Starbucks. So cool. And I tried to see if I could get into the ICO, but they had know your customer and everything, so it was hard. But that's also a good thing, I think. It's basically an ERC20 token, but I think they are going over to NEM and they are using NEM public and private chain for their solution. So this you see here, I just got it from the community channel. It's a hardware station here, and one person is buying Bitcoin with a card, and yeah, it's basically that. So you have this thing called Kamsa. It was big news some months ago, and this is NEM kind of wants to get off the dependency on Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you want to buy them, you probably are going to go through Ethereum or Bitcoin, but they want to get off that, so they are launching their own exchange. And this is also another use of the private and public blockchain. And here there are some how this will work. TechBureau is also operating this Stife exchange, which which they are using to facilitate the exchange. So here you could be able to deposit euros and buy them and withdraw with euros. It's regulated in Japan, and it should be useful with fiat and crypto. NEM, this is the proof of concept of a game publish engine. I know that this is just a proof of concept, and they are creating a new game publishing engine called Xarcada. It's not released yet, but I know this guy is working on that too. And it's kind of cool because you can have, if you see here, it's pay to play or sponsored play. And if you don't want to buy the game, you can just have a sponsor pay for your game, and then you have to go through an ad, and all the ads are facilitated through the blockchain and so on. And the game is also it's just a JavaScript game, but if you get the high score, you get these assets back to show that you have actually got the high score on this game. So it's a cool concept. It's not that commercial maybe. So now we have gone through what the fuck is NEM. Are you any wiser about what NEM is? Kind of. So here there are some claims on what the Catapult version would do, and the community in NEM are very excited about this. So yeah, I said we had this three-way swap, and that's handled with this atomic swaps and multiple transactions in a transaction. We don't know quite how it works yet. We have gotten some proofs about that it should work, and you can see that they had 3 transactions in a transaction, and all have to be valid on the same time to actually go through. But yeah, we will see. But what that also says is that you will have these pull transactions, and with blockchain you always have had, and there's a reason for it, but you always had push transactions. If Bob wants to send Alice some Bitcoin, you will create a transaction, sign it with the private key, and send it. But what about many things in banking now is pull, and that's one thing that is available with multiple transactions in a transaction. Then you will kind of get a transaction in your mempool, and you have to choose to sign it or not sign it. Yeah, and NEM envisions this world where every business runs its private chain, and they are transacting private chain to private chain and private chain through the public chain and through the private chain. There are examples of banks, they think that banks can use it as their backend system for handling all the accounts and transacting assets between them. So yeah, that's one thing. With this new release, they're also claiming Swift compatibility. And as I said, now we're talking about public and private chain. But the private chain, Mijin, as it is now, is tested up to 4,000 transactions each second. But now they have created it with C++ for performance matters, so I guess it should increase. And maybe they are getting up to 20,000. And when they're claiming that they are Swift compatible, Swift is the bank messaging system that are used by all the banks. And when they're claiming Swift compatible, they are saying that, yeah, you can run both Swift and this private chain solution together. And if that works, it's kind of it can be a deal breaker, but we will see. So that's something about Catapult, what people are very excited about. So I said, like, NEM markets itself for businesses and businesses today. So I'll just quickly go through why I think it's like that. And it's because I said you can write logic in your preferred language. It's kind of like other technologies. You write your logic on off-chain, but then it's simpler to develop on. It's any developer in almost any business can start using it, and it has a lot of built-in functionality, which it restricts, because it's not like Ethereum where you have all the possibilities, and but it's restricted, but it's also then simpler, and maybe you can argue, but maybe it's secure also. So you can write logic off-chain, and you have these private chains that NEM envisions is where businesses actually can get control over blockchain. And the typical example is that the bank is using this private blockchain, and a customer is frauded of 100,000 kroners, and they want to revert the transactions. And this should be possible with private chain. So that's why NEM is for businesses. And in the future where NEM really takes off, how does it look? And here I took a slide from a blockchain presentation by William Rode. It says something about the blockchain possibilities, and if you're an optimist, there are many more possibilities than if you're a pessimist. But I just want to say, like, where do I think NEM is in this optimistic or pessimistic world or future? And I would say that they are like half somewhere, but they are actually kind of, NEM is focused on being there for businesses as they are now. It's not about disrupting or making things a different way. In that, to be honest, it's not about that. It's more about delivering efficient and secure software to businesses, and that's also kind of why it's for businesses. So that's an honest opinion, my opinion about it. Then I'm finished with the presentation about NEM, but I'm going to do a quick airdrop. We created this blockchangers namespace, and I'll create a coin, and we will drop it for everyone that writes their NEM address onto the meetup comment. So if you don't got the NEM wallet, you can download it on your PC or your phone. Just go to bit.do/NEM wallet. If you get an address, put it on the meetup, and I will ship some blockchangers coin to you. So I'm just going to create it while you're all here. And this is on the mainnet, so big thing. And I'm just using a regular account, so I can transfer this to you later, Jon. You can get it, or we can have a multi-signature, and you can be partly in power. So I created this. By the way, here you see my kind of way of using them. It's this is a very secret account where you don't have access, because I have three other accounts that are in charge of this account. So I'll go into block changers, super secret password, 123. And I create namespace block changers, and then just lets us create the asset. Switch node. There. So create a mosaic and block changers coin. Coin. A powerful coin to change blockchain. Yeah. And how much should we have of it? I'll go ahead and say 550,000. And I'll share out everything today. And it should be transferable, it should not be mutable, so this is what ever will exist. And let's create it. Block changers. By the way, I could change the description later with the transaction. Okay. Yeah, now it's going. Like, put your NEM address in the meetup, and I will ship every coin to everyone that adds it. That's also for the streamers. If you put your NEM mainnet address in the meetup, I will send all the coins today. And here's some more information. If you want some more boiled down information, go to bit.do NEM card. NEM is launching a hackathon with a global hackathon, so everyone can join and start developing on the NEM blockchain. There are $30,000 in prize. That was the asset that was created. And if you want to join the Telegram community, there are some links there. And yeah, thank you very much for coming and listening to my presentation about NEM blockchain. Yeah. So yeah, every transaction on them is viewable, and there's, if you Google NEM Explorer, for example, you will find there are some different explorers, and you can see all the assets there. But